Welcome back to the sanctuary. Last week we talked about the heavy toll it takes to wear the mask, to put on the persona, to to display in front of everybody in the world in order to keep the inner self protected and in order to portray an image in order to keep people out. We do this in order to feel safe, we do this in order to feel secure, and we do this in order to fit in. We discussed how this constant clash, this constant performance act on Broadway leaves us feeling mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually drained and exhausted. It disconnects us from the individuals around us, and it disconnects us from ourselves. Today, we're going to be taking on the biggest obstacle there is to jump over, and that's taking off the mask. The fear of being exposed, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of being ourselves, our genuine selves. We're going to challenge a very deeply ingrained cultural and societal notion that in order to be strong, you have to show no weakness. But in fact, vulnerability is not a weakness. However, in fact, it is our biggest strength that we must draw from. For a lot of us, the idea of being vulnerable feels terrifying. It's almost horrifying. It is almost debilitating to your core for some individuals, if not a lot of us. It's going against everything we've been taught, everything we've been structured to believe. It goes against the things that have been ingrained in us. And it's our biggest struggle to try to combat that type of thinking. We're told that in order to be a man, you have to be the rock. In order to be a man, you have to show no fear. In order to be a man, you can't be anxious. You can't be depressed. You can't be frustrated. You need to turn off your feelings. You need to turn off your vulnerabilities in order to produce. To be a man is next close to being an immovable mountain, to be unshakable, and to be unbreakable. And the moment you show a crack, the moment you show a chink in your armor, the moment you show a flaw or a vulnerability in that armor, we fear that we will be seen for who we are, for what we are. And the worst part about it, to ourselves, that's either being soft, being weak, being less than, not being fit to be a man. We worry that if we share our fears and our insecurities and our pains and our frustrations and everything that's inside of us that we welter up all the time, we fear that we'll lose respect from the world, from those around us, and from ourselves. And most of the time, it's a perceived notion that the respect that we have built, we have worked so hard to earn. But I want to challenge you to reframe your thought process. And even bigger, I want to challenge you to combat that process, to push back against that process, to push back against that social distortion of who you think you should be to the world. Because last I checked, the world could be a cruel place. So vulnerability is not about being defenseless or harmless. Being meek-mannered does not mean that you're soft or that you're weak or that you're not willing to put boot to ass when it's time to do so. That is a very, very common misconception about being meek-mannered. Vulnerability is an active choice that you have to make day in, day out, 24/7, 365. Every day you get up to every day you go to bed, you have to make an active choice, an active decision every day to open up that door when need be. It is a conscious decision that we have to see for who we truly are With all of our imperfections, all of our flaws, all of our weaknesses, all our dirty mess, dirty laundry that we try to push away and that we don't want anybody to see, we shove it all into the closet, all into the corner. You have to remember that even though you expose everything, you expose all your flaws, all your weaknesses, every bit of you that could be seen as a weakness or as a flaw, you have to do that willingly. With understanding that there's no guarantee that anybody's going to accept you for who you are. That is when you know you have found freedom in yourself, and you've understand that you're not in control of anybody else. You're not in control of how they feel. You're not in control of how they react. You're not even in control of whether or not they want to listen to you. But you can only control yourself. And that is the part. It's the courage to say, listen, I'm not doing well, I'm not okay, and I'm not fine. In a world that expects you to be good, okay, fine. It's the ability to not give a fuck, or should I say, to give a fuck less about what other people think of you and what other people may perceive of you. Discussed this in the last episode. That takes real bravery. That takes real courage. That takes real control of yourself. That takes a deeper level to understand that you are not emotionally driven, but that you are emotionally intelligent. In order to set your standard, your morals, your values, your beliefs, and stand on that principle. That takes courage. That takes bravery. And it's far easier to put up walls on a day-to-day basis in order to keep people out, in order to keep yourself in a box, than it is to open up a door. It's like Christ. It is our responsibility to open the door to allow him into our lives. It is our responsibility. The door handle is on our side. We have to open up that door and allow him in. We have to open up that door to allow others in, whether it's our spouse, whether it's our brothers in arms, whether it's my trusted coworkers. It is our responsibility to open up that door, because it is a lot easier to suffer in silence than to be misunderstood. It is a lot easier to suffer in silence than to be misrepresented. And that's why the act of being vulnerable is so profound. It's a profound level of strength. It is a profound level of self-awareness. It's telling the world, and more importantly, it's telling yourself that you are more important than the mask that you put on and that the performance that you are willing to play for everyone else around you, in which 95% of them may not even care about you. So why do we worry so much about our image? Why do we worry so much about the mask that we put on and that we portray in front of everybody? We have to remember, if we allow this, we allow ourselves to be shaped into an image that society wants us to be if we play this performance. If we perform in the circus. If we continue on the rigmarole or the hamster wheel. But I want you to really think about this. Really think about this. If you choose to push back against that, if you choose to work on yourself and to develop yourself and understand that your vulnerability is not a weakness, it allows us to be shaped into an image that society does not want us to be shaped in. It doesn't allow society to dictate who we are and what we represent. This gives us the ability to find solidarity with those around us. An individual that is able to be strong, to be open, and to be vulnerable, that is what society does not want. Now, just because you're vulnerable, that does not give you the permission or the free pass to act outside of yourself. It doesn't give you the permission to say whatever you want. It doesn't give you the permission to do whatever you want. You have to remember that God has given all of us the responsibility of handling ourselves appropriately. He's given the responsibility to us in order to be a representation of who he is. And with that responsibility, you have to treat it as such, especially the ones that he bestows onto you. So don't forget that. Even though we are working to be more of yourself, you also have to remember that everything has a time and a place. Compartmentalization, prioritization. In order to take care of business, there's a time for you to be open with the trusted individuals around you, and there is a time to take care of business. Do not let those lines get blurred, because as soon as you do, you have lost, and now you're being emotionally driven, because all you're going to walk around and do is say, well, I'm vulnerable right now, so I'm just going to express myself however I want. We're not talking about being victims. That's not what this is about. It's about understanding how to control yourself and how much effort you put into growing yourself, into growing that inner part of you that may have been stunted at some point in time in your early development, in your early childhood. It's about the effort that you put in order to become that adult that you are supposed to be. This is your responsibility. This is on you, nobody else. So, I want to change gears, and I want to share a very personal story that's happened within the past year. So, a while back, when I started up this whole thing, Nubia. For some of you know, it's a coffee business that me and some of my close friends decided to start up. We didn't know much about it, but we decided to give it a run, right? We figured if we worked together, we probably could figure something out, right? So, with that being said, a lot of long hours, financial pressure, trying to figure out who's going to pay for what, who's going to raise what capital, how are we going to pay for websites and clothing and suppliers and branding and all these things. Constant decision after decision after decision after decision. And it was all getting to us. Because we're all trying to figure this out. Where do we figure out our place? Whose responsibility is what? And who's going to do this? And who's going to do that? And it was stressful. And I took that responsibility on heavy. And I was running on fumes. And I don't sleep much, but I was already pushing the line of not having much sleep at all. And I found myself, and I felt within myself that I was just becoming more agitated and irritable and annoyed, and things were just getting to me that normally just would not get to me. It wouldn't even be a consideration as something that I would be frustrated about. And I would find myself short of patience. And the more I looked at it, the more I was just kind of withdrawing myself from those around me, just pulling back just ever so slightly. And it was a struggle. It was a struggle to find some peace within humanity. And the more I relegated to myself, the more I started finding that I was just getting a little more dark and a little bit more heartless. And it was a tough spot. And I was suffering in silence. I was wearing the mask. And I told myself, I got to do it this way. I got to do it this way. I got to suffer. I got to do this by myself. I got to portray that everything's well. But inside, I know I'm hurting. And that went on for a while. A long while. But seriously, God just works in mysterious ways. And sometimes he does things that surpass far understanding. Like you can't even conceptualize it. And you just know that this is all faith. You got to have faith. And I was finding it very hard to find that, to stay there, to hold it, because things are just getting a little bit tough. But one thing I do know is that when God puts you in a situation and you feel like you're about to break, he's doing it to grow you. Because in order to grow, you can't be comfortable. So now, even though we started Nubia Coffee a year ago, and we started the sanctuary shortly after that, and posted some videos, we did some things, we connected with some people, things of that nature, it just kind of just ended up kind of, just humming on out, right? So it wasn't until about a month or so ago, one of my real good boys, he hit me up, he sent me an invitation to a men's workshop. Shout out to Hira for this one. So he sent me an invitation to a workshop, and I looked at it initially, and I saw it, and then I put it in my brain, but I dumped it, right? So like a week or two went by, and then it just popped up in my mind like, hey, like, check the message that Rose sent you about this men's workshop. So I opened it up, I messaged him, I'm like, hey, bro, like, is this still going on? He's like, yeah. So I was like, I think I might have some guys who might be interested in going. So I reached out to several of my boys. Some of them were busy. They had other things they had going on, which is all good. Life happens. And so two of my boys were able to come through, Johnson and Russell. And another one that, to my surprise, I didn't even know he was showing up. My buddy Jimmy showed up. And what happened there at that table when it was me, Ro, Jimmy, Rusty, and Johnson. We're all at the table, and we're having this moment where we're discussing all these things that none of us ever really talked about. And it's crazy because I think the shortest time frame of friendship that I've had with each one of these guys, the shortest would have been 9 years. So how do you go 9 years, almost a full decade with, knowing somebody, hanging out with somebody, discussing things with somebody, and working together and all these things, but then there's these parts of their life and these aspects of their life you didn't even know they were struggling with. This all just connected right back to my last episode, right? Suffering, wearing a mask. But everything that happened there was just so raw. It was real. Conversations were brought up, things were discussed, and enlightenment happened at that table. And it brought realness. And for some of us, it brought tears because it was real. God was in the middle of that, and it was real. And that's what I've been talking about. That's what this is all about. That's what the sanctuary is about. It's that connection, the ability to connect with other brothers, the ability to carry and shoulder each other's burdens. Not only am I carrying theirs, but they're carrying mine. And instead of suffering together, or suffering in silence, or throwing a pity party and being victims of our situations and our circumstances and everything that goes on, instead, we decided to grow together. We decided to come together in that moment. And due to that workshop, quite honestly, it ignited this whole thing up again. It gave me purpose. It gave me understanding. And like I said, God works in mysterious ways, and he revealed it all. And the crazy thing about it is I don't even like doing this. That's the crazy part about it. People will like send me messages, or like they'll like see me and they'll be like, hey, like, keep doing what you're doing. And quite honestly, it might look like I like doing this, but I truly don't. But what I do understand is that this is my purpose. And my purpose is different from how I feel. Because I may feel one way, but what I do and how I do it are two separate different things. Sometimes they align, but for the most part, they're going to be a little bit different. And I have to be able to accept that and understand that this is my purpose and this is what I control. And what I can control is the amount of effort I turn on the dial. That's my responsibility. So even though during this whole situation, being overwhelmed, you got mortgages, bills, payments, the struggle, etc., all of that, that moment right then and there with my brothers, with the boys, I felt a weight was just lifted. And I wasn't so much of a failure as I thought I was. It just made me human. It just made me vulnerable. And in that, All I needed were just simple words. I didn't need a direction. I didn't need them to tell me what I needed to do or how I needed to do it or why I'm struggling with this or why that's a problem. I didn't need that from them. And they didn't need that from me. The only thing that we needed to hear was, I hear you, brother. You're not alone. We've been there and we got you. And in that moment, like I said earlier, there was a bond that grew a little bit deeper, that grew a little bit harder, and that was just that much more unbreakable. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It wasn't a moment of I'm being vulnerable, so now my closest friends are going to be able to take advantage of me. It was a moment of true connection. They didn't see me as being broken. They just saw me as another man carrying a load, and they offered to carry that load with me. And that's the power of being vulnerable. It's not about being weak. It's about being real. It's about being honest. It's about being truthful. It's about being transparent. Opening up the pathways to create a deeper connection with those around you, especially with ourselves. When we allow others to see who we are, when we allow ourselves to be seen, we create the space for us to truly come together. We find out that we are not alone in our struggles. We are not alone in our pain. We are not alone in our suffering. We eventually find out that the more we link together, the stronger we grow. And the stronger we're able to shoulder each other's burdens so that we can rely on one another when it's needed. So how do we begin this process? And it's not about just all of a sudden just barring out your soul and just pouring out everything into everybody else, because like I said, 95% of the world just don't care. It's about starting small. You don't want to be reckless. You want to start small. Just like any other thing you do. It's the slow progression and it's the discipline, right? So start with a trusted friend. Start with your spouse. Start with your pastor. Start with a community leader, somebody that you look up to, that you value what they have to say. And when they ask you, when they check in on you and they say, how you doing? Don't just say I'm fine or I'm good or I'm all right. Try, I've been feeling drained, man. I've been feeling overwhelmed. That's where you start. Open up that door. Give them the ability to come in and help. Share your fears with your spouse, your partner, your brothers in arms. Share that with them. Tell them what's truly on your mind. What are you struggling with? What has got you hampered down to the point to where you continuously make the same mistakes because you are trying to cope with a problem that's bigger than yourself. You're trying to cope with bearing an image that does not align with who you are. And you'll be amazed on how real that conversation will get, how fast it will get there, how intimate it will be, and what type of support you'll get from it. Third, find your community. That's the mission of the sanctuary, is to promote the awareness, not only for all men, not only for black men, not only for white men, not only for Asian men, Hispanic. Not only is it our mission to get each and every man to a level that they need to be at, this is also the mission of Nubia Coffee. And it's the reason why me and my boys created this in the first place, is because we figured out that sometimes, yeah, it's cool to go out and to, hang out with your boys and have some drinks and kind of chill and kick back and crack jokes. But real conversations happen over a cup of coffee. And that's what we noticed when we started this, is that these conversations need to be had. And if nobody else is going to do it, well, then we'll start it. This is one of the missions of our partners, True North Adventures, who's starting up. I discussed everything that they're working on during the last episode. This is why we have their backing. And this is why we will back them, because what they're doing is in alignment with what we're trying to do. So whether you're in a men's group, You're part of a church group. You're part of a recovery group. Find your space where you can share your fears, your insecurities, the parts of you that you don't want anybody to see, your flaws, your cheeks, and your armor. Do all that in that space without fear of judgment. True strength is not in the armor that you bear, but it's in the heart where you're willing to show it, where you are willing to expose it to those around you. This is where legacy is built. This is where legacy is worth building onto. And this is where legacy is built to stand on. A legacy of being genuine, of being honest, and of being authentic with ourselves and those around us. So I want to thank you once again. And in the next coming weeks, we're going to continue these vital conversations. We're going to be exploring how these pressures from the image of being, the strong black man, that whole myth, the silent suffering, vulnerability not being a weakness, wearing the mask, all these things run straight into a head. And how all of these things end up manifesting into our lives, which then rolls into the burden of being the provider, the responsibility of being the provider, the responsibility of being the it factor, of being the captain, of boring all the decisions and taking the responsibility whether you are wrong or right, positive, negative, and the immense pressure that it puts on us as being the sole financial rock, to being the sole provider, to being the strong individual that everybody expects you to be, and how this impacts you on multiple levels. So until then, I encourage you to find your space, find your peace, find your community, find your sanctuary. Whether it's around a group of individuals that you meet with on a weekly basis, whether it's with your one or two homeboys, remember, connection and openness to your vulnerability is the step. So be sure that when you make these choices and you make these decisions to open up, that you're doing it with wise mind. You're doing it from a place of emotional intelligence, logic, and reason. And make sure that the individuals that you divulge this information to, they've been battle tested. Don't just throw it away for free. And I would hope that while you have these conversations with your homeboys, whether you have these conversations with your spouse, or whoever you deem as being appropriate to be in your corner to divulge this information to, you do it over a cup of Nubia coffee. Remember, your strength is you being authentic. Remember, what you say and what you speak into existence is your responsibility, from your mouth to God's ears. So once again, I want to thank everybody who has supported us up until this point and who will continue to support us and encourage Nubia Coffee to grow. I want to thank everybody who continues to support the sanctuary, our mission, our vision, and our drive. And I also want to thank True North Adventures for constantly giving us more purpose, more meaning, and more drive. So I want to thank you all once again for listening. This has been The Sanctuary. Be sure to visit www.nubia.llc for any merch that you may want, coffee, in order to share these conversations with those in and around your circle, because it is vital for connection. Thank you.